Hello and welcome to the Game Dev Local podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Clark, he, him, and I am on a pod quest to learn everything you wanted to know about game dev, but never dared to ask. Today, I'm going to be diving into the world of localization and culturalization with Alex from Alconost. Alex, tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Hello, my name is Alex. I run a company called Alconost. So what we do is we localize everything that is intended to international markets. So that's games, that's apps, that's website, that's marketing, that's everything that goes in different languages. So that's what I've been doing this for 20 years already, and I'm here. I'm happy. Thank you for having me here. If I could share my experience, I would be very happy to do
And
this.
that's what this is all about. So let's dive into, so one of the things that I think is really fascinating is that the realization, and this is the basic level, that we often find people default to English. And that's such an easy thing to fall into, not just for UK people like me, but because we know that the principal revenue tier one markets will often either speak English or accept English as the default language. Now, I don't think that makes sense for anyone who's trying to scale a game, but do you still see people with that mindset?
Yes, absolutely. Everybody starts with English, and that's a very good thing to start with English. But I would recommend, and my best piece of advice for game developers is to start with two languages, because when you start with two languages at the very beginning, from just very first line of code, you do this internationalization of a game right away from the very beginning. So implementing just two languages gives you, opens you in the future, you will be able to localize it into 20 languages, 30 languages, it doesn't matter. So technically, starting with two languages and having the master language as English will open all the doors for localization in the future. Because
And I think
finding
that's, yeah.
translators, yeah,
Well, no, I just think
because
that's super interesting because
hmm,
what I think is really powerful about that is the reminder to people that it's not just about the language; it's about how you set up your text and
yes,
your images
yes,
in a way
yes.
that structurally can support more than one language.
Yeah, global by design. Global by
Yeah.
design, keeping in mind global by design. And yeah, only 18% of people, population in the world, just would accept English language as the language they can use. It might not be their native language, but at least they are able to use. But it's only 18%. That's not very. That's not very
That's
like.
gone down. Oh my goodness. I always thought it was 25% because there was a very
Mhm.
simplified stat back in the day. But I think you've hit a really important point. The population's changed. You know, English used to be a quarter of the world's population. It's lower from what you're saying.
Yes, if we take China, a Chinese
Yeah.
language, it's 16% of the world population. So it's compared to English, just English
Mm-hmm.
to Chinese. They are basically have the same number of native speakers. And then
Yeah.
goes Spanish with 550,000. This is 7%. Uh, then might be Portuguese, Hindi, French, Arabic, Japanese, Korean, Russian, German. So if you cover like 10 languages in your game, then the world is yours. So you're
Well,
covering like
exactly.
80%
But
of population.
it's true. But one of the languages I've always found, we spent a lot of time working with the Jordan Games Summit, and Noor, who's a good friend of mine who used to originally set that up, and it became Pocket Gamer. The realization of how impactful Arabic is as a language, I think, is
Mm.
fascinating. We don't always forget. We always remember that these areas we think it's just Middle East, but then there's Malaysia and there's other Muslim countries where that may not be the primary language, but it is also one that is well understood and can be culturally connecting people, even if it's not their first language, which I think is also fascinating.
Yeah, Arabic is often overlooked.
Mm.
This is mainly because of technical reason, because
Yeah.
these right to left layouts. And when you're developing a game, you are probably a Western person,
Yep.
and you don't know, you just don't think about the right to left layouts. So I was so much surprised when I saw Windows operating system in the first time in Arabic.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that the start button was at the right, and that
Yep.
was mind blowing. And I understood that time that if you have a game in an app, this is a special effort to do that the layout of text would go from right to left, and not only text, also some graphics are mirrored. That's technically might be technically challenging, and everybody postpones Arabic to the end of
I know, and
everything.
I remember I'm in my, shows how old I am, in the early 90s when I first encountered, Hebrew and Arabic and trying to work out how
Mm-hmm.
to make, and this was a mainstream app. This was a general IT before I even joined games. How do you make a Windows interface actually function, let alone trying to make that work for a game? If you think about the kind of ways that we
Yeah.
interact with games, the way we communicate in games, and there's so much finesse required in the way that we use pop-ups. And if they're presented in the left to right, right to left model, changes everything. So I think I think you're right. I think there's a functional reason from a back end systems point of view, and I've always been an advocate of the kind of spreadsheet model. Kind of what I mean by that is not necessarily a spreadsheet, but a separate map of all of your language in your or game, so that you can have it in, essentially, this is the column that is English, this is the column
Mm-hmm.
which is, and actually I often go even further by looking at kind of like file structures in asset stores, because you've got to
Mm-hmm.
think about that for the point of view of the text that might appear in your images. You've got to think about the
Yeah.
the cosmetics that you might make available or not. For example, what always strikes me, again, we're going to get into culturalization a bit too quickly if I say this, but what the heck? Um, if you start doing underwear as the default basis for somebody in their avatar, you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
problems in a lot of Middle Eastern countries.
Yes, absolutely.
If you have
Yeah,
skeletons as
yeah.
cosmetics in the Asian territories, you could potentially
Mm-hmm.
get into serious problems, because, well, we look at ghosts and ghoulies as Halloween fascination. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
ancestor worship and Golden Week and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's very easy to forget these things, isn't it?
It's not only games, even in the apps
Yeah.
world is there is the same thing present. So we had such an experience like preparing a game for pregnancy tracking,
Yeah.
localizing it, and it just had some screenshots for the App Store, and those in the original there was a girl on the screenshot with a naked belly, naked
Yeah.
belly. So
Yeah.
in Korea and in Japan, it's unacceptable. So they redraw the screenshot to cover the belly because I'm not telling about the Arabic world.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is just a nonsense, some naked woman there. It's cultural and inappropriate. So for that we have. While doing the localization, we have those native speaker translators, linguists that would just check all those cultural issues and report them right away, even before the localization starts. So they
100%.
will just spot any issues of this
So
kind.
let's roll that back a bit. So what we're saying is that
Hmm.
the advice that you're giving is that starting with at least two languages puts you in a position where you've got
Yes.
the technical framework in mind, and you
Yeah.
know that you're not going to have bigger problems down the line, which I entirely get. But now,
Yeah.
what you're introducing, what I inadvertently introduce, is this idea of culturalization. I think there's something profoundly important that you've just said, which is, I think, why just Google Translate it doesn't do the job well, and
Hmm.
actually having somebody who is literally local native is transformational when it comes to the localization. And for me, it's about understanding not just to translate, say, the number one, but the type of number one that might be applicable in that particular territory. I'm thinking about Japanese in particular, where you can have round things and they've got their own counting system. You have flat things, they've got their own counting system. You've got all sorts of rules and nuances, which, to be fair, a lot of the translation programs are getting a lot better at. But there's something about gamer language, about slang, about human tone.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm kind of making the case for you because I find it fascinating. But what is the reason why you find it? Well, I'm assuming that you find it frustrating that people think that they can just use a Google Translate or something similar.
Well, they think they can use, and they use, and that's for small indie developers. This happens to be a common practice, just to go and Google. And nowadays there is AI, ChatGPT, which is translating quite good, and they really use it. And that's for some projects it's okay. 99% of games don't have budget for localization. Maybe they have some communities. Maybe they have some people that might help them, but they don't have money. And going with Google Translate, and nowadays it's better to use ChatGPT or different other LLMs. This is a way to go for small, to test the waters, just to test. And if the game has traction in Indonesia, for example, then they might have budget to make it more to make the translation more professionally. Going just with Google Translate is not the way for serious brands. No Sony PlayStation game were translated using just Google. If it were, then there is somebody who might bear responsibility for the translation. And overall, the translation industry is like when you go to doctor, you can prescribe your medicine by yourself, or ChatGPT would prescribe you, but the responsibility is then yours. But if you go to doctor, he bears responsibility. You trust him, and this is what happens in localization industry. What we sell is we are selling trust. We are assuring that the quality of the localization will be good. That nobody will think about that localization exists. They will just play, and it will go. It will feel native. It will just work, and nobody will notice that the game was created in Japan or in China. Nobody noticed. They just play, and that's it. So you can go just with Google Translate. You need a human to approve and test, perform localization, quality assurance. And AI is now disrupting the localization industry very much. 2 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, all the localization professionals were quite frightened by the LLMs doing the translation job on a very high level. But now we know that not all the LLMs work with all the languages. We need different LLMs for different languages. It depends on the content type. We can use those in pipelines, but in the end of the day, it's not 90% cheaper. No, it's like 30% cheaper, just 30%, because human is still there in the loop to check everything. Because LLMs, they can hallucinate, they can create things that are not present in the source, they can make mistakes, and sometimes they can even refuse to translate because of the type of the content.
Absolutely. I've literally had this with. I was trying to get some transcriptions. I mean, I was always going to do manual finish them anyway, but to speed up my pipeline, I was trying to get some
Mm-hmm.
transcriptions of, or summaries rather, of interviews I'd taken for a book I was writing,
Yeah.
and my goodness, the number of times it went on some really weird tangent that wasn't as part of the interview, and I had to effectively just start from scratch. It is amazing how no matter,
Yeah.
first one was fine, second one was fine, third one completely bat crazy. It was just weird. I think there's some other stuff to with that though. So I mean, for me, historically, when we were looking at like localization, we would usually start with eFigs, probably Japanese, simplified Chinese, and traditional Chinese as
Mm-hmm.
our starter for
Yeah.
10. The
Yeah.
impression I'm getting here is that actually the ability to have a greater range of languages earlier on is now possible because of the efficiencies that can come out of using that combination of AI supported human. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. The list of the languages never changed for 20
Yeah,
years. That's been just the same list.
yeah.
But you
We
are
should
absolutely
we
right.
should explain eFigs to people who don't know.
Yeah,
So
that's
English, French. Yeah, you do. I'm
that's
talking.
EFIX. So it's English, French, Italian, German, Spanish.
Yeah,
So those four, then we add CGK, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and then
yeah.
optionally there is like Portuguese and all the other languages like
Dutch. Yeah,
Russian.
yeah,
Dutch is quite popular because
yeah.
people just like French people like playing in French. So
Yeah.
Dutch people, if there is a
Dutch
Dutch
and Flemish
localization, then
people
why not?
like to, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So I think
Uh,
that.
so
Sorry, go for it.
yeah,
Yeah,
speaking about that complexity, many years ago, like 20 years ago, that was a huge pain to support the languages. So the
yeah,
developer, they just add some new dialogue or a new some button or some character or anything, and then it must be updated in all the languages. And without localization platforms that are now present and are now very powerful, that was real pain to update. So to merge all the updates between the files. And the more files you had, the more manual work you would would be required to do to support the languages. So running 20 languages from the day one, that was a disaster. That was really impossible.
yeah.
But nowadays, and this is my number two advice of my best number two advice for developers is to use localization platforms. That's not spreadsheet. That's not some just file sitting in your somewhere. Localization platform. You might keep your string localizable resources in your GitHub repository. That's the best option. In some structured file like key value file or some structured JSON file, just to in the future to give the context for yourself as a developer to know where is this string located in the game. So when you have
Absolutely.
a structured JSON or key value file, you can guess by looking at the key. And the same guess would be made by translator, and they will be understanding that this string is for the first level of this farm simulator, and this is the name of a main character. And this is clearly can be seen from the name of the key. Structured files, and you might keep them in GitHub repository, and then the localization platform. There are lots of them. Like I can name 10, dozen, I don't know. So the localization platform would allow the platform to go to your GitHub repository. You will show the files which you want to localize there.
Yeah.
And the localization platform would extract all the strings to be translated. The manager and the translator would come to this platform to translate, ask questions, ask for screenshots, or just doing different kind of pre-translation translation memory, matching, using glossaries, etc., etc. So lots of functionality there. And then the platform would just do the pull request to your GitHub repository with all the localized resources. And whenever you change something in the source, it's automatically propagated to the localization platform and then back to you, and you just merge the pull request and you're all set. And this, we call it a continuous localization approach. So when you just forget about that the localization exists, you have a team of translators that are just delivering translations overnight, and you just doing the game development, adding new content. Yes, and with these platforms, it's easy to go with trendy languages right away. If you just have money to do the human review, then that's no problem to go just right away.
But also, you're not locked in. I mean, this is the thing, I think. Yes. I'll give you an example. Back in PlayStation Home days, so this is like 2008, 2011, when I was there. 15 is when the game unfortunately got closed down. But in that context, we had objects that were created by third parties. The contracts that we had meant that we weren't allowed to update those objects. Stupid contracts. Bad idea. Big mistake. What it meant is I couldn't add any new languages.
Yeah. Nowadays there are SDKs that allow you to do just this. Imagine you have a game that you published on App Store. You waited for several days for approval in some local app store in Indonesia. They checked that you have localization, they approved, and you're leave. And suddenly you understand that you forgot to translate something, or you added something, or even you want another language to enable another language, and you want to do this without this reapproval and resubmission to the App Store. And this is especially important when you have some seasonality in a game. For example, you're running operating farm simulator where you have like Halloween season, and you've got some new content to deliver to the users, and you cannot. You might do this with resubmitting the application and so that the users will re-download it, but that's painful. They would not do this.
Painful.
So there are SDKs that you built into your game, and it will just download this localization or whatever pack without this resubmission. So this is also one of the features that modern localization platforms have. So
and this
that's
to me is key, because essentially more and more of players are focused on longer term surviving games. And I think there was news who came out with some stats talking about PC gamers, and only 12% of PC gamers' playtime was in new games. You think about how huge of a shift that means. I've got some questions over what that means in terms of numbers, but that's a different subject. The point, though, is that if I'm going to have a seasonal update and I cannot have a pipeline, a flow that just makes that happen, that work, that can't repurpose tones and language and elements instantly, I am just adding to the cost of that update. I'm reducing its return on investment. That's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was just thinking, though, that takes me on to another area, though, which is one of those things I think is really interesting. We've talked about text, essentially. We talked about images to a certain extent, but there's also voice, which is increasingly kind of important.
Yeah.
I remember avoiding like the plague doing voice translations because that's an exponential kind of hill to climb. But by having these kind of pipelines, does that not minimize the impact of that? These tools, these back-end tools, does that help?
Yes. Nowadays there are platforms, and just a week ago we were involved in the project. We're now involved in a project where we redub some series of episodes of some drama. I don't know. That's a huge amount of content. And what what's the behind the scenes there is that there are platforms to do that, and there is AI that perfectly not only translates but also they make voiceovers. So this is like Google Translate for translation, but now you can copy and clone the voice, and you can just require and program the emotions, and it feels when you listen to it, you sometimes you cannot tell whether it's human or not. But that's not for game localization yet. Maybe for some like plastic content that is.
Oh, there's so many. There's a whole can of worms to be opened in that particular area. I have lots of friends of mine who are voice actors who are finding that whole area very complicated at the moment. Obviously, with the use of AI in particular.
I see that I liked one very like clever thing. Do you remember this game, Plants vs Zombies?
Yes, very much so.
Plants vs Zombies. So there is a monster who is always talking, but nobody knows what language he's talking. It just goes. Brr, 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 brr. Oh, that was genius.
Sims. The Sims were the ones who mastered
Sims,
that.
Yeah.
Simly,
the same.
Which is essentially derived from Finnish, which I find hilarious. I mean,
might be.
I have Finnish friends of mine who tell me that they can understand Finnish. Anyway, but I think that's really important. So one of the things in my head, though, is about this idea of putting the power of a server to work with localization, and I think that does open up so much. One of the reasons why I was raising the question about voice is because I think one of the things that voice brings is delivery, and you mentioned it with emotion in particular, and you know, tagging artificial voices with emotions has been something we've looked at for years and years, and I think that's definitely becoming more interesting with AI, assuming you're a team that are comfortable with that approach to things. By the way, I'm comfortable with that in principle, but my issue is ensuring the financial model. So if it's your voice being used, I think you should be paid for your voice being used and be comfortable that your voice is used. But that's a longer subject for another time. For this question, my thinking is that a lot of translation, the kind of translation that you make, the kind of image use you might use, the kind of voice that you might choose, is based on context. And I
absolutely.
think humans are best at context.
Yeah,
but what's
absolutely.
the challenge? What's the challenge for doing that?
Well, when we do this voiceover localization, this basically we get the original. We not only localize, we even do the original voiceovers. For that, we have a kind of not a database, but a list of people of native voice actors with their demos just recorded. And when we start to work with the client, we always give the client to choose from like 5 German speakers, depending on what the game. If it's a horror game, then the voice should be consistent with that. So, and if there is music, so the best thing is to just turn on the music and then switch the voices and just listen what mood it just creates, what's the feeling. So, and this is even if you don't know the language, you just start to feel in some way this atmosphere. The atmosphere is very important, and when there is a voice in the game, people start to like the voice. They like in a radio show. People often like listening to radio because there is a voice there that just looks familiar, like their family member.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. A friend of mine who is a fantastic voice actor, Kareem, has been in a number of games, a lot of audio dramas, and there's something about his voice. One time I was listening to a podcast, and I immediately woke up that's Karim, and there's something really satisfying about those voices that
yeah.
kind of
The
connect you to that story.
artists, this
Yeah,
artistry. So this
yeah,
artist, so for your game, like if you have a rock band, you have your bassist, you have your guitar player and vocalist. So and you somehow build this band, this very unique band. So when we talk about creating a game with voices there, so it's like choosing some very important person to do the voiceovers. And
yeah,
I didn't believe there is one problem with the voices, that they become older with time. So imagine there are some games that last for 10 years. That's
yeah.
and
20, some of them.
Yeah,
RuneScape's
yeah.
at least 20. I mean, I'm trying to think how long has Eve Online been going? Anyway, yeah, I'm with you.
I remember Eve Online. So
It's still there.
I've been to some DevGam conference
Yeah,
in
yeah.
somewhere in Poland, and the creators of Eve Online, they were just delivering their experience.
Yeah.
Um,
I was chatting to. I mean, I've met Hilmar a few times, but Daniel, who's one of the game designers, was doing a talk in
mhm,
Poznan last year, and I got to have a fantastic chat
mhm,
with him about how Eve functions. In fact, actually, I've got it in my upcoming book coming in February, but that's not. I'm not pitching today. Um,
yeah.
I'm going to just ask one little observation I think is really interesting about these voices and choosing voices. I think choosing
Mhm,
voices
mhm,
is
mhm.
something that actually is a skill in its own right. And I do remember the anecdote that they have to dub Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Schwarzenegger movies because he sounds like a farmer. So
Mhm,
in German, he doesn't sound like an action hero, he
mhm,
sounds
mhm.
like a farmer, so they have to have someone dub his voice. And you
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
think about
Mhm.
that as a Brit. I'd never think of that. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the classic voice. He's the Terminator. I'll be back. But I mean, how much skill do you think goes into getting not just the tone, performance right, but actually understanding the local impact of that accent?
Yeah, that's not very simple question. So it's like
No.
selecting an artist. Uh,
Well, I suppose what I'm
uh,
saying is casting matters, and casting is a
Casting matters,
skill.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's not up to the developer to choose the actor
Yeah.
before the developer is presented with the list of voices.
Yeah.
They get filtered before, so that they do not sound like farmer when
Yeah.
we need Terminator
Yeah,
instead
exactly.
of this.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
before that, it's screened. It's yeah.
And I think
Mm,
that's the thing where working with a third party, working on a pipeline provides the reason why big companies pay for those services, to my mind, is that things like that specialist knowledge become something which are provided as part of the option. You don't have to learn like you do with an indie dev everything. You can have some of it provided for you, essentially.
yeah, and also they pay for this management. So imagine you have a game which is translated into 50 languages. We have
Yeah,
those. I'm not
easily.
telling. Imagine like some game like Minecraft, which just translated into more than 50 languages.
Yeah,
And imagine managing 50 just people to translate. And not only those 50 people, because the 50 people who are translating and the 50 might be people who are proofreading, who are the editors. So this is 100 people. And there are project managers who would be observing over the quality, over the delivery times, over the everything. So translating into 50 languages requires this huge amount of management. And this management, if you manage, sometimes people they just finish their work, they don't work anymore, and they must be substituted for someone else.
yeah,
And then there are there are technical things to do, and you pay them. You sign the NDAs with everyone. And if you're a game developer studio, you don't have time for that. If you're a publisher, you don't have time to do this. Sometimes they come with and tell that we have our in-house translators, but it works until the in-house translators are 5 people or maybe 10 people. When it's more than you're just a translation agency. Why?
Yeah.
I'm not translation agency. I'm a game developer. So
Exactly.
let's outsource everything. Let's find a partner who would be building a mixed team. My favorite case is when we have shared Slack channels with clients and with their translators and community managers and our translators and our managers. So we build together. So we are like a department of a game development studio, but our responsibility is not to code, is not to make some artwork, but to translate, to deliver. So, and this is I call it mixed environments, and this works best. We're planning releases together. They come to us and say, well, in 2 weeks we have Halloween and we have a huge content pack. We need it to be translated into 20 languages. And we allocate resources and we just plan everything and we plan together. This is the best case how we work with the big development studios, just building this mixed
Completely get it. Completely get it. And I think to my mind, the scale goes up because I think people to put it in context with an indie dev who doesn't necessarily sort of understand the scale of this thing. So think about every scene in the game is going to have a number of UI element that need to be translated. There'll be pop-ups and dialogues that need to be translated. There'll be store messages that need to be translated. There'll be voice moments, and there might be alternate voice moments depending on how you interact with the scene. There might be alternate text moments that have to be designed. All of which are going to have a sequence, have a reference, have a thing that's going to be called. And if you think about the exponential nature of a game that might be endlessly playable, might be tens of hours of play, and where you'll have interactive voices. I mean, think about Baldur's Gate 3 and the completely huge scale of the number of conversations you could have.
Yeah.
And now you're going to translate that into 50 languages. That's the scale of the problem.
Yes, and game developers, when they realize this, they start. This might be influencing the game design itself. So understanding that it must be translated into 50 languages, this huge amount of content. Just this understanding gives the idea how to avoid this. Maybe they would, like in Sims, talking in just Simlish, some other language, or they just or will just do some captions and do not localize voiceovers. Then that's okay. And it depends on how much money the game earns.
It's a balance between money cost, but also level of immersion. And I think that it's easy to forget. Yeah, it works in English, but if you want the global audience to have a passion for your game, this stuff makes. I remember, I've forgotten who it was now, was doing some stats, and there were a couple of games in the Arabic market or the MENA market, so Middle East Africa, Middle East Northern Africa market, where the games have been translated into Arabic or not. So there was a version was English and a version that was Arabic. And as I recall, these two games, I think one was 2 times the adoption, the other one was 5 times the adoption. Same game, just repackaged. And and that matters when you're talking about relatively significant audiences, particularly when you bear in mind this, right? So the Saudi Arabian audience spends more money per head of population than the US on games like PUBG. That there's scale of revenue. I mean, let's leave questions of politics aside, but there are scales of revenue that make massive impacts if you fail to think about the translation properly.
Speaking about game localization, sometimes with this immersion, I remember I played games in Japanese without knowing Japanese. But because I was so interested, because I was so like immersed, I understood that I was playing a Japanese game. I didn't understand anything there, but somehow I just played because I liked it. And in the game players world, they forgive not very high quality localization if they can play, if they can just play and they like the game. They sometimes just of course it's not about ridiculous translations that just spoils everything. But if there is something not 100%, they will forgive because they are players. But that's not that's only in games allowed. That's only because there is. If you translate some app,
it can even become a meme. I mean, let's face it, the
classic
meme of games is all your base are become us. Yes,
this kind of we have lots of memes and we use them every day to communicate sometimes.
Exactly.
I remember some.
But I'm with you. I mean, it's not something you can figure. Although something I do, one of my favorite little translation nonsenses. I had some juggling balls, and on them they wrote "I'm like fish." Obviously, there was a poster. I like fish. It was a little cat on a juggling ball, but for some reason the use of the phrase "I'm like fish" made me so happy.
Yeah, it's cute. I would say
it's just cute.
Games become cute in this way. It's not suitable for serious titles when you're Sony and you say with a very serious face, we deliver a game, we sell the game for $100. You buy it, and if you paid $100 and there is something with localization, you feel that it's not worth it.
If the localization's wrong, what else is wrong?
Yes,
it's a trust issue.
If it's an indie developer who tried their best and delivered, and you still play, then why not? The users, players can forgive. But this works only in games. If you have a website or some business with a translation of not very high quality, this absolutely damages reputation, and it's much more serious. Not in the game world. The gamers, they are gamers.
No, totally, and I mean, let's take it one stage further, because I think that what we talked about is obviously this is a big question. The bigger the game, the bigger the question, the bigger the team, the more significant it is, and there's reputational elements on the line as much as there is quality control issues on the line. And as you've said quite rightly, there are some things you can do to just get started. And if you're an indie gamer, you can be forgiven for these quirks, and that's okay. But if you're going to get serious, get serious. I think there's some other stuff which makes it even more complicated. And I remember specifically my friend Kate Edward, who does a lot of work in this space in particular. One of the biggest challenges she faced working with things like Age of Empires was that some translations don't go way beyond just language. They become questions about history. So which country controlled which part of the world at what point in history is a massive political issue. Currently, right now, what is considered China, massive political bombshell. This is, I think this is really fascinating from a development point of view. Is how on earth is an indie dev supposed to know these things? I mean, I'm not just talking about. I mean, there's the obvious cultural things like, we mentioned Golden Week versus Halloween, as in the kind of idea of ancestor worship being a the dead are our ancestors and we respect them, versus the dead are to be feared and ghosts and goblins. Those sorts of things are one thing, but I think when you get down to profoundly political issues, they can absolutely make the difference about whether you're even allowed to be on sale in those countries. How does someone navigate those kind of things?
Oh, this is only native speakers of that are living in the country. When they just start to do this, they flag. They just raise red flags on every issue. One story I remember, not that serious, not that political, but somehow we had a game. We localized the game. It was originally for the US market, and they have a cafe, and there were some characters coming to the cafe, and they were the bartender and the visitors. They had some dialogues between them, and it was very fun that the characters, they were super diverse. There might be just not people, but some creatures. And one day they introduced the Queen of Great Britain. She came to this cafe, and they had some dialogue and some jokes around this. And when we were localizing it from American English to English to Great Britain English. And the translator, they flagged this, so saying that you might be changing this because this is no jokes around the Queen, so that's inappropriate. It might be inappropriate in England. So and they changed something about that. So I remember that that's the story.
But that's an interesting one, because personally, I invite those jokes. I mean, I think those jokes are the best.
Maybe.
But to be honest, my politics are very small, are Republican. But that being said, I mean, I think actually there is. I mean, again, it depends on the nature of the joke, because I think there was a certain
might be
a certain
and also another. Just another one. That's from marketing. We were localizing some advertising, some banners, and on one of the banners there was American flag, just American flag. And our native speaker, American person who were involved in that as a consultant, she said that with Trump ruling in the United States now, the American flag is associated just with him. And that is just gives a wrong connotation. And some people in America, they would read this in different ways. So let's avoid some flags ever. Let's avoid everything. So be safe. That was that's only possible. That's only possible when you work with natives living in their countries. And if we speak about China or Japan, there are lots of prefectures, and there are lots of. It's a universe, right? It's not. It's just not one Japan, for example. No. There are lots of things inside the country, and if you start doing localization, you might be asking several people from different kinds, from Okinawa or from Tokyo. They are different, absolutely different. Sometimes culturally. Quite far from each other. So it depends on the depths you're willing to go. But the tools to do the proper localization, they are here. You just need you just need people there. And if you go to localization agency with this task, it's a hell. It's a hell to translate those historical things from Chinese history. That's you cannot simply translate it into. We were translating some Chinese game into Russian language, and there were some artificial creatures that never existed ever, and they had so funny and so synthesized names like fish plus microscope. Like it's hieroglyphs had good some meaning, but. It was funny in Chinese and understandable by Chinese people, But when translated into the other languages, that was hell to recreate all that, that English humor also is sometimes we even translate jokes literally, just making the reference. This is the originally. This is joke. It's untranslatable. Sometimes
I totally get it. Totally get it. And like
like
you say, some of it just.
reworking the book.
But I'll go even further in some of the stuff. So you mentioned like difference in different parts of Japan, and there's dialect differences between different cities as well. Then you take Yorkshire. So if you are from that part of the UK, there are something like 60 different dialects in that region. So there isn't even one Yorkshire. I say that my grandmother was Yorkshire, so I consider myself to have some level of heritage. But you do not want to hear my Yorkshire accent, which is much more Lancastrian, but it's very, very, very bad, but funny if you're up for a joke about it. But the point is that what is authenticity when we have such diversity in tonality? Anyway, I find that deliciously fascinating, and I think what I hope we've done is we've shown people who you guys who are listening that there's a range of questions that come, and there's scales of iteration that we can go through in order to be able to address translation, localization, and culturalization issues. But at some level, we get to a point where politics will take a place, and sometimes that politics is going to be it's structural. So like, is this country historically in charge of that section of the world or not? But it can also come down to personal politics when you're dealing with things like the current situation in America. If your native speaker has one political view and that is diametrically opposed to other people in the territory, what does that do to the output? I'm not saying we've got any good answers to that, but I think that shows us the level of complexity in getting great game experiences, and understand the importance of sticking to a vision of the immersion levels that we want wherever you are in the world. Does that make sense, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just bounded by the budgets, I would say. You may go as deeper as you want as a game developer, or you might choose the way to avoid anything, to be very safe politically, historically. And this is why we have lots of games about killing zombies and not about wars. Killing zombies is fun. I'm just playing Doom, the eternal, and I'm just with my 3 years old. I have 3 sons. The smallest one is 3 years old, and we are killing the monsters just with this chainsaw. And that's very fun. No politics in no history, no cultural anything in Doom. It's absolutely immersive, absolutely genius game. And it doesn't have any this kind of thing. So,
but it's interesting how even Doom comes from Wolfenstein before it, where there was the whole area of dealing with Nazi kind of symbology, but also a game called Carmageddon. Carmageddon was the first time I heard people using zombies, because originally you drove around in Carmageddon knocking over people. But in Germany, that was objected to. They didn't like the blood. That's why the blood became green and they became zombies. So it shows that even in those contexts, there is a localization route to some of those underlying issues.
Yeah, and it's also a cultural thing. It's not about the localization, but also because there is a global culture in games. Yeah. So in Need for Speed, you cannot hit people, because they are there. They are going back and forth.
Miraculously jump.
Yeah, some kind of. But in oh my God, I just forgot the game where you intentionally hit people.
Yeah. In Carmageddon, it's in GTA. Let's face it. The whole point about GTA is to be a terrible person, which I love the idea of, but I find it draining, and I wish I liked the characters that they have in those games. I just don't like them. and I like to play a character I like. But that's me. I love the fact that GTA exists. It's an amazing, incredible experience, and I love the fact people love it. But I got a bit fed up. One last thing. So you've given us two pieces of advice already. What is the advice that you would give to somebody starting out, right? One of the team here listening to us right now, doing their game. What is the things that they should think about when what's the most important thing to think about when it comes to culturalization, localization, and all these other issues?
Technically, as I said, my first advice is starting with two languages. This gives you internationalization. You will be safe with 20 and dozens of languages. Then using localization platform to organize it all just once, and then you are not delayed your releases with localization. Using also SDKs to deliver translations over the internet. That's two technical questions. The third one is about marketing. I have a personal story. My background is software development, and 20 years ago I created a program. This is how Alconost started. I created a program, installer. I created a website, created a health system, and started to sell it. It was in two languages originally. And I got my first purchase from Great Britain. Someone by the name Brian Popham just bought my software that was doing the mathematical functions, graphing. So this kind of software. And that project was not successful because I didn't do any marketing. I knew nothing. I knew lots of things about development. I could be delivering very quality software. It was so that was really good. I just sometimes it still works. It's still good. It still works on Windows, modern Windows. That's the price. But I knew nothing about marketing. How would I promote that my software? And I see that game developers, they do the same thing. If they are not professionals, like funded, very like veterans, they start with money. Before they make a game, they start to think about how it will, what's the audience, what's the geography of all this, what's the price, how they will get traffic, how they will publish it, maybe using publisher or not, do they have budget or not. Sometimes 99% of games on Steam, they just end up in this, we just uploaded that on Steam, didn't do our homework with the screenshots, with the capsule, with just text, with descriptions, with nothing, no GIF, no screenshots, and no wish list, zero wish list, and that's it. And this is just depression then because your game failed. So
well, exactly,
my third piece of advice is to start with this hypothetical unit economy of the game. So how would you promote? Start with the promotion, start with the marketing. Now you can vibe code a demo in just one day sometimes. AI gives you graphics, AI gives you video, AI gives you voiceovers, localization, AI gives you even the code. And if it's just one screen game, like a simple clicker or something, I don't know, very casual, you can simply make a video, have a better, some people who would just wish your game. You can do something about money from the day one, and this is my advice. I had that experience. Myself, my software failed. Maybe I would become another Microsoft. I don't know, but I knew nothing about selling software. My next purchase happened only 4 months before the first one, and then there were a few copies per month sold, and I could not do anything about it because I'm not a marketing person. I'm a development person, and that's
no, I'm with you. I think the idea of being able to build something quickly and express your idea quickly and test it, and then leverage that test to get audience is massively. And it's what hyper casual is built off of. But the hyper casual let itself down by not thinking about retention. And that, I think, is one of the things that, to bring us back to localization and so on and so forth, is realizing that reach and sustaining your audience matters. And that only happens if we create that level of immersion, that level of engagement. And that means that we have to think about the path from the moment we create the first concept to the moment where we have an ongoing sustainable experience. And I think there's a path and journey to that. And I'm amazed by what's possible now. And like you say, there's a lot of people who are anxious about the use of vibe coding or generative AI and things like that. I think, though, the opportunity it allows creatives to try ideas rapidly is absolutely phenomenal. And it's something that we ignore at our peril.
Yeah, I'm looking at my 12 years old who is playing Roblox, and not only playing, but also developing something there. Some friend ops. I don't know. No, so my 30 years both came here.
All good.
So I see that this younger generation, they don't require super pooper graphics. They don't, my wife. So that's a meme. That's a meme story. They don't require super graphics. They don't require some unusual game mechanics. Some experience. They require that their friends are there with them, 100%. And they just doing something, jumping in this kind of square world, like in Minecraft. This is those are the real gamers of the future.
They are. Absolutely. So, Alex, thank you so much for that. I think we've covered so many areas. Not only we talked about localization, but obviously we're thrown in at the end there a whole bunch about the benefits of exploring what the new technology can give us when it comes to things like vibe coding, testing, marketing, and the importance of understanding that this isn't just a coder thing. This isn't just an artist thing. This is a holistic business mindset that we have to think about. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed that. You found that interesting. If you've got questions, if you don't agree with some of the things we've said, if you want to know more about what is involved with taking your game from your concept to the idea and making sure it can appeal to the widest possible audience around the world, then let us know. Join us on the Discord. Like, subscribe, share, follow, whatever it is that you do on the platform that you're enjoying this on. But please come back next time when we'll be talking more about more things related to the making of games, and I will continue my podcast to learn everything you want to know about game development, but never dared to ask. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you for having me.